December 22nd, 2021. Columbia, South Carolina. A distraught Taylor Wardlaw stands at the center of a growing search party, her eyes red from crying, voice breaking as she directs volunteers to fan out across the neighborhood. "Please help me find him," she pleads, clutching a photo of her longtime boyfriend and father of her child, Terrell Sims. He's been missing for 2 days now. This isn't like him at all. Friends and family rally around her. They distribute flyers with Terrell's face and description. They comb through nearby woods and abandoned buildings. Taylor updates her social media constantly, sharing heartfelt pleas for information about Terrell's whereabouts. She even brings their young child to the search, telling the confused toddler they're looking for Daddy. "I just want him home," Taylor tells a local news reporter who arrives to cover the story. "His children need him. I need him. Please, if anyone knows anything." Her performance is flawless. The concerned girlfriend, the devoted mother, the organizer turning grief into action. But it's all a lie. The woman desperately searching for her missing boyfriend already knew exactly where his body was because she put it there. Just 48 hours earlier, Taylor Wardlaw had shot Terrell Sims 4 times during an argument in their home. One bullet struck him in the back as he tried to escape. Then, with his body still warm, she made a phone call, not to 911, but to her secret lover, Eddie Youngsta Brown. Together, they wrapped Terrell's body in plastic, loaded it into her rental car, and dumped it in a remote creek off Monticello Road. They removed his court-ordered ankle monitor and tossed it out the window a mile away to confuse investigators. And in perhaps the most chilling detail of all, Taylor stopped at a pawn shop that same morning to sell Terrell's gold-mouth grill for quick cash. Now, as search volunteers called out Terrell's name in the winter air, Taylor knew their efforts were futile. She knew precisely why Terrell wouldn't answer. She knew exactly what the searchers would never find. This isn't just a story about murder. It's about the elaborate performance that followed, a calculated deception that fooled family, friends, and initially even the police. It's about a love triangle that ended with one man dead, another implicated in covering up his murder, and a woman whose ability to compartmentalize her actions shocked even seasoned investigators. The case of Taylor Wardlaw reveals the disturbing reality that sometimes the person organizing the search party is the same person who made someone disappear. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about how well we really know the people closest to us, and how convincingly some can wear a mask of innocence while harboring the darkest of secrets. Have you ever known someone who seemed completely different from who they really were? Someone whose true nature was revealed only after a shocking event? Share your experiences in the comments below as we examine how Taylor Wardlaw nearly got away with murder by hiding in plain sight. "They were like fire and gasoline," said Mariah Jenkins, who had known the couple for years. "Passionate when it worked, explosive when it didn't." Taylor Wardlaw and Terrell Sims embodied the classic toxic relationship, intense attraction punctuated by devastating conflicts. Their 4-year relationship had produced a child and countless dramatic reconciliations that kept them locked in a destructive cycle. Taylor, described by co-workers as sharp and put together, maintained a carefully crafted image of competence. But those closer to the couple witnessed her controlling behavior, particularly her obsession with Terrell's whereabouts. The ankle monitor he wore for a previous minor offense became her tracking device, which she checked compulsively. She'd call him screaming if that monitor showed him stopped anywhere for more than 15 minutes, Terrell's cousin told investigators. She'd demand to know who he was with, make him video call to prove where he was. By late 2021, neighbors in their Columbia apartment complex had become unwilling audience members to their escalating fights. Police had responded to domestic disturbance calls 3 times in November alone, though no charges were filed. What no one realized was that Taylor's jealousy masked her own betrayal. As she interrogated Terrell about imagined infidelities, she was already planning her exit, not just from the relationship, but from Terrell's life entirely. "Something's going to break," Terrell's sister Rose had warned just weeks before his murder. She had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. The secret affair. While publicly playing the suspicious girlfriend, Taylor was living a double life that would ultimately provide the motive for murder. Eddie Youngsta Brown wasn't just a side relationship. He represented Taylor's imagined future. Their affair had begun in September 2021 after they met at a local nightclub. What started as flirtatious texts quickly escalated to secret meetings at a motel off Interstate 26. By November, they were discussing a life together once Taylor handled her situation with Terrell. The psychological dynamics were disturbing. Taylor's most explosive accusations against Terrell typically occurred within hours of her meetings with Eddie. Security footage from their apartment complex captured a telling pattern. Taylor would return from an unexplained absence, immediately start an argument with Terrell, then step outside to text Eddie during these same fights. She was masterful at creating chaos to cover her tracks, Detective Rivera noted in his case file. She'd accused Terrell so aggressively that he'd be defending himself instead of questioning where she'd been. By December, Taylor had taken concrete steps toward her planned transition: a secret bank account, apartment inquiries under a different name, and gradually moving personal items to a storage unit she'd rented near Eddie's apartment. The affair reached a critical point on December 19th, just one day before the murder. Taylor and Eddie exchanged 43 text messages and had 7 phone calls totaling 96 minutes. In one recovered message, Taylor wrote, "I'm done waiting. Tomorrow, everything changes." The next day, Terrell Sims was dead. What makes this case particularly chilling isn't just the affair itself, but how Taylor weaponized her relationship with Terrell, using his trust against him while systematically planning his removal from her life. The woman who accused him of betrayal was orchestrating the ultimate betrayal herself. December 20th, 2021. Columbia, South Carolina. The air carried the scent of pine and cinnamon from holiday decorations as darkness settled over the modest 2-bedroom home Taylor Wardlaw shared with Terrell Sims. Christmas lights twinkled on neighboring houses, but inside their residence, a far darker scene was about to unfold. Taylor had meticulously arranged for their child to stay with her mother that night, a detail investigators would later flag as the first sign of premeditation. The house was empty except for the couple, providing the privacy Taylor needed for what she had planned. At 9:17 p.m., Terrell received a text from Eddie Brown that he wasn't meant to see, a message mistakenly sent that referenced plans between Eddie and Taylor. This digital slip became the spark that ignited the fatal confrontation. According to data later recovered from Terrell's phone, he confronted Taylor immediately, sending a message to his friend DeAndre at 9:43 p.m. "Caught her lying again. This time I got proof. About to end this for good." Those would be the last words anyone would receive from Terrell Sims. Inside the house, the argument escalated rapidly. Neighbors would later report hearing raised voices, not unusual from the volatile couple, but more intense than typical. One neighbor described hearing a man's voice shout, "You serious right now?" followed by a woman's voice responding, "You don't know shit." What made this argument lethal was the .38 caliber revolver Taylor had positioned earlier that day. Home security footage from their doorbell camera, recovered weeks later, showed Taylor retrieving something from her car at 4:32 p.m. and bringing it into the house wrapped in a towel, the approximate size and shape of the murder weapon that was never recovered. As the argument reached its peak, Terrell apparently attempted to leave the room, perhaps to de-escalate, perhaps to pack his things. This moment of vulnerability became his death sentence. Taylor raised the weapon and fired the first shot, striking Terrell directly in the middle of his back between his shoulder blades. The forensic evidence told the story with clinical precision. The bullet entered at a slight downward angle, tearing through his left lung before lodging in his sternum. This first shot alone might have been fatal eventually, but Taylor wasn't finished. As Terrell spun around, likely from the impact and shock of the first bullet, she fired 3 more times in rapid succession. The second bullet struck his upper chest, the third his right shoulder, and the fourth, fired as he was already collapsing to the floor, hit him in the neck, severing his carotid artery. Blood spatter analysis later showed that Terrell fell against the living room wall before sliding down to the carpet, creating a distinctive vertical smear pattern that Taylor would attempt to clean but could never fully eliminate. According to the medical examiner, Terrell likely survived for approximately 30 to 45 seconds after the final shot, long enough to potentially have been saved had immediate medical attention been summoned. But Taylor made a different choice. Her first action, captured in the digital forensic timeline, was to delete the incriminating text from Eddie from Terrell's phone at 10:12 p.m. Her second action was even more telling. She took photos of Terrell's body with her own phone. Images later recovered that showed she was documenting the scene with an eerie detachment. At 10:17 p.m., just minutes after ensuring Terrell was dead, Taylor called Eddie Brown. The call lasted exactly 47 seconds. No emergency services were contacted. No attempt to render aid was made. The brevity of this call suggested a prearranged plan now being activated, not a panic reaction to an unintended outcome. Cell tower data placed Eddie's phone moving immediately after this call, traveling directly from his apartment to Taylor's residence. He arrived at 10:52 p.m., parking not in the driveway but around the corner, a precaution that suggested awareness of wrongdoing. When questioned months later about why she called Eddie instead of 911, Taylor offered a response that chilled investigators. "I knew he would help me fix it. Not save Terrell. Not undo what had happened. Fix it, as though a human life was simply a problem requiring a solution." With Eddie's arrival began one of the most methodical crime scene cleanups local investigators had ever encountered. The pair operated with disturbing efficiency, suggesting either preparation or remarkable composure under pressure. They started by taking inventory of the evidence that needed to be eliminated. Taylor's phone, later seized during the investigation, contained a series of photos documenting the blood spatter, Terrell's position, and the bullet holes in wall, a criminal's checklist for cleanup, rather than the shocked documentation of tragedy. The blood-soaked carpet presented their first major challenge. They initially attempted to clean it with household bleach, creating a distinctive chemical reaction with the hemoglobin that actually made the stains more visible under forensic lighting. Realizing their mistake, they made a decision that pointed to Taylor's foresight. She retrieved a carpet remnant from the garage that matched their living room flooring perfectly. Receipt records later showed she had purchased this exact carpet piece 7 days before the murder, claiming to the store clerk she needed it for a pet accident. This premeditated acquisition of matching carpet became one of the prosecution's strongest arguments against any claim of a crime of passion. They cut out the blood-soaked section of carpet, replaced it with the pre-purchased remnant, and used furniture to cover the seams. They collected the shell casings, wiped down surfaces for fingerprints, and used 3 different cleaning agents on the walls to eliminate blood spatter. The thoroughness suggested Taylor had researched crime scene cleanup techniques, another digital breadcrumb investigators would later find in her search history from December 15th, how to clean blood from walls and carpet. By 2:30 a.m., the residence had been transformed. Only specialized luminol testing would later reveal the truth, that despite their efforts, microscopic blood evidence remained in the grout between tiles, in the carpet padding they hadn't replaced, and in the tiny seam where wall met baseboard. The disposal of Terrell's body revealed another layer of calculation. Rather than using either of their personal vehicles, they loaded his remains into a Nissan Altima that Taylor had rented just 2 days earlier, a vehicle with no connection to their regular lives and spacious trunk that investigators would later determine had been selected specifically for this purpose. The creek off Monticello Road, where they disposed of the body, wasn't chosen randomly. Taylor's Google Maps location history, later recovered by digital forensics, showed she had visited this exact location 3 times in the week before the murder, spending approximately 20 minutes there each time, apparently scouting the perfect disposal site. The location offered multiple advantages. It was isolated but accessible, featured flowing water to eliminate evidence, had no security cameras within a half-mile radius, and was deep enough to conceal a body while being shallow enough to allow easy placement. The selection of this site alone contradicted any notion of an impulsive crime. At the creek, they made a critical decision that revealed their understanding of modern forensic techniques. Terrell had been wearing a court-ordered ankle monitor related to a previous minor offense. This GPS device would continue transmitting his location even after death. They carefully removed this monitor and drove approximately 1 mile away before tossing it from the car window, creating a deliberate false trail for investigators that temporarily directed the search away from the actual disposal site. But perhaps the most chilling action, the one that prosecutors would later describe as revealing the true coldness at the heart of this crime, came the following morning. At precisely 8:17 a.m. on December 21st, security cameras at Columbia Gold and Pawn captured Taylor Wardlaw entering the store with a small velvet pouch. Inside was Terrell's distinctive gold mouth grill, a custom-made dental piece featuring his initials in diamond chips. The pawn shop footage is particularly disturbing for its normalcy. Taylor appears completely composed, even smiling and making small talk with the clerk. She haggled over the price, eventually accepting $85 for the gold piece that had cost Terrell over $1,200. She used her own ID for the transaction and signed the receipt with a steady hand, creating a paper trail that would later help convict her. This wasn't a desperate act for survival money. The $85 wasn't used for escape or necessities. Bank records showed Taylor deposited the cash along with her regular paycheck later that day, treating the proceeds from pawning her victim's possession as ordinary income. When asked during interrogation why she pawned this particular item, Taylor's response was simply, he wasn't going to need it anymore. After completing the disposal and cleanup, Taylor made another calculated decision. She waited a full 36 hours before reporting Terrell missing. This delay served multiple purposes. It allowed time for evidence to be thoroughly eliminated, for the body to be affected by water and elements, and for Taylor to establish a seemingly normal routine. During this 36-hour window, Taylor went to work at her administrative job, picked up her child from her mother's house, attended a holiday potluck with friends, and even posted ordinary social media content, including a Christmas cookie baking photo with her child. Each action was designed to establish normalcy before launching the next phase of her deception, a performance of concern that would temporarily fool an entire community. At 10:22 a.m. on December 22nd, Taylor Wardlaw called 911. The recording of this call, later played in court, revealed a masterclass in deception. "I need to report my boyfriend missing," she told the dispatcher, her voice cracking with what sounded like genuine emotion. "His name is Terrell Sims. I haven't seen him since Monday night. We had an argument and he left, but he always comes back within a day. He's never gone this long without checking on our son. Something's wrong. I know something's wrong." The performance was flawless, the perfect mixture of concern without excessive panic, specific details that created verisimilitude, and the strategic mention of their child to generate immediate sympathy. The dispatcher created an official missing person report, and Taylor provided a detailed description of Terrell, including what he was supposedly wearing when he left, clothes that investigators would later determine had been deliberately disposed of to support her narrative. Within 3 hours of filing the police report, Taylor launched a social media campaign that would become a case study in manipulative deception. She created a Facebook page titled Find Terrell Sims that gained over 3,000 followers within 48 hours. She crafted posts with psychological precision, sharing childhood photos of Terrell with his children, writing emotional pleas in real time, and using specific language that would maximize shares and community engagement. "Please help find Terrell. Last seen Monday night at our home on Elmwood Avenue. Not answering his phone. This isn't like him at all. His children are asking for their daddy. Christmas is in 3 days. Please help bring him home to his family. Share everywhere." The campaign quickly gained traction, with local news stations picking up the story. Taylor gave 3 separate television interviews, each one displaying an escalating level of emotional distress. In the first interview on December 23rd, she appeared concerned but composed. By the third interview on December 26th, she broke down crying on camera, barely able to speak, a performance that generated enormous public sympathy. What viewers couldn't see was what security cameras at a local gas station captured just 30 minutes after this tear-filled interview. Taylor laughing with Eddie Brown as they purchased snacks, her demeanor completely transformed once she believed no one was watching. The most disturbing element of Taylor's performance involved Terrell's children. She brought his 4-year-old son to search events, positioned him in front of news cameras, and coached him to call out "Daddy, where are you?" for maximum emotional impact. She created hand-drawn signs for the children to hold reading "Come home, Daddy" and "We miss you," photographing their confused, sad faces for social media posts that became the most shared content from her campaign. One volunteer who participated in the searches later recalled, "She had that little boy calling for his father, and all the while she knew exactly why his daddy couldn't answer. I can't imagine what kind of person does that to a child." Taylor organized search parties with strategic precision, creating maps that directed volunteers to areas of Columbia far from the creek where she had disposed of Terrell's body. She provided searchers with a detailed, last known whereabouts document that directed attention to neighborhoods Terrell frequented, ensuring no one looked near the actual disposal site. She even joined these searches herself, calling Terrell's name alongside volunteers who had no idea they were being led by his killer. Her manipulation extended to Terrell's family as well. She maintained constant contact with his sister Rose, calling her multiple times daily with updates and theories. She attended family prayer vigils, standing arm in arm with Terrell's parents while leading prayers for his safe return. In one particularly chilling moment captured on a family member's phone video, Taylor can be seen comforting Rose, telling her, "We'll find him, I promise," a statement that was technically true in the most macabre sense. The contrast between Taylor's public and private behavior was stark and damning. While publicly portraying herself as too distraught to function normally, her digital footprint told a different story. Her credit card was used at Sephora for a $175 makeup purchase on December 23rd. Security cameras captured her dining at an upscale restaurant with Eddie on Christmas Eve. The same day, she posted on Facebook that she was too sick with worry to eat. Cell phone records revealed perhaps the most disturbing pattern. Immediately after tearful public appearances, she would call Eddie, sometimes laughing and speaking normally in conversations recorded by his vehicle's Bluetooth system. In one recovered audio clip, Taylor can be heard saying, "They're all by it. No one suspects anything." Most telling was her handling of Terrell's possessions. While maintaining the narrative that she expected him to return any day, Taylor had already begun systematically removing his presence from their shared home. Neighbors reported seeing her discard his clothes in a dumpster on December 24th. She removed photos of him from the walls, replacing them with new decorations. She even contacted his cell phone provider on December 27th, attempting to remove his line from their shared plan, an action that created a digital record contradicting her public stance of expecting his return. This calculated performance continued until January 5th, when Terrell's body was discovered following a tip from Taylor's friend who had come forward with information about Taylor's confession. Even then, Taylor attempted one final act of deception, posting on social media that she was devastated by this news and asking for privacy during her time of grief. But by then, investigators had assembled enough evidence to see through the performance. Within 48 hours of the body's discovery, Taylor Wardlaw was in custody, her elaborate deception exposed, and the truth about what happened on that December night finally revealed to a community that had been unwittingly cast in her production of innocence. As Taylor's public search campaign reached its second week, Detective Marcus Rivera of the Columbia Police Department was quietly assembling puzzle pieces that painted a very different picture than the grieving girlfriend narrative dominating local media. "Something's off with this case," Rivera noted in his case diary on December 28th. "The timeline doesn't add up, and her effect is wrong." A 15-year veteran of homicide investigations, Rivera had developed what colleagues called a sixth sense for deception. Taylor Wardlaw had triggered every internal alarm he possessed. The investigation's first major breakthrough came from an unlikely source, Enterprise Rent-A-Car's automated damage reporting system. The company's routine inspection of Taylor's returned Nissan Altima flagged unusual damage, a small caliber bullet hole in the hood that had been poorly concealed with touch-up paint. This discovery prompted a full forensic examination of the vehicle. Crime scene technicians employed luminol testing in the trunk, revealing a faint but unmistakable blood pattern consistent with a wrapped body. The blood had been meticulously cleaned, but microscopic traces remained in the trunk's carpet fibers and seams. When confronted with these findings during a January 2nd interview, Taylor's response struck investigators as particularly damning. "That might be from groceries or something," she said with a shrug, showing no concern about blood evidence in a rental car, while supposedly desperate to find her missing boyfriend. "I transported some meat from my mom's house." This casual dismissal of critical evidence became a turning point in the investigation. Detective Rivera immediately requested a more comprehensive analysis of Taylor's digital footprint, including surveillance footage from businesses along routes between her residence and the area where Terrell's ankle monitor had been discovered. The resulting video timeline devastated Taylor's version of events. While she claimed Terrell had left their home voluntarily around 10 p.m. on December 20th, cameras from a gas station, an ATM, and a 24-hour pharmacy captured her rental car, making multiple trips during the early morning hours of December 21st, precisely when investigators now believe Terrell's body was being transported. One particularly damning piece of footage came from a QuickTrip security camera that clearly showed Taylor's rental car at 4:47 a.m., with two occupants, Taylor driving, and a male passenger matching Eddie Brown's description. The vehicle was heading toward Monticello Road, and its return was captured by the same camera at 6:23 a.m., a time frame that perfectly aligned with the disposal of Terrell's body. The ankle monitor data provided another crucial contradiction to Taylor's story. The device's GPS tracking showed it had remained stationary at Taylor's residence until 4:32 a.m. on December 21st, when it suddenly began moving, not the previous evening, as Taylor had claimed. The monitor traveled to the area near Monticello Road before going offline completely at 5:17 a.m., creating a digital breadcrumb trail that directly undermined Taylor's narrative. Cell phone records delivered perhaps the most comprehensive destruction of Taylor's timeline. Her phone and Eddie Brown's phone ping from identical tower locations throughout the critical hours of December 20th to 21st, including near the creek where investigators were increasingly convinced Terrell's body had been dumped. The records showed 17 calls between Taylor and Eddie on the night of the murder, with a suspicious 3-hour gap in all phone activity during the exact window when the body was likely being transported and disposed of, suggesting they had left their phones behind or powered off during the most incriminating activities. As these technical elements came together, investigators received what Detective Rivera called the human piece that completed the puzzle. On December 29th, Shanice Williams, a childhood friend of Taylor's, contacted police with information that would break the case wide open. According to the detailed statement Shanice provided, Taylor had called her at 1:37 a.m. on December 27th, sounding intoxicated and emotionally unstable. During this late-night conversation, Taylor had made a partial confession. "I did something bad in AC," Taylor had said, using Shanice's nickname. "Terrell's not missing. He's gone and I made him that way." When Shanice pressed for details, Taylor revealed that she had shot him during a fight and that Eddie helped me take care of it. Most crucially, Taylor mentioned specific details only the killer would know, including that Terrell had been shot in the back and that his body had been put in water off Monticello. Shanice, visibly shaken during her police interview, explained her decision to come forward. "I watched her on TV crying about finding him, knowing she was lying to everyone. I have kids too. Those children deserve to know what happened to their father, even if it means turning in my friend." This testimony provided investigators with the probable cause needed to obtain search warrants and redirect recovery efforts to the specific creek area Shanice had mentioned. On January 5, 2022, 16 days after the murder, a search team discovered Terrell Sims' body partially submerged among reeds and debris. Despite exposure to water and elements, the body yielded critical evidence. The coroner confirmed 4 gunshot wounds, including the damning backshot that contradicted any potential self-defense claim. The bullets recovered matched the .38 caliber ammunition found later in Taylor's home. Most conclusively, fibers from the plastic wrapping still clinging to portions of the body matched the unique composition of plastic sheeting found in Taylor's garage. With Terrell's body recovered, the investigation accelerated dramatically. Forensic teams processed the remains while detectives observed a telling shift in Taylor's behavior. Her previously prolific social media campaign abruptly ceased. Security cameras captured her visiting 3 different banks to withdraw cash in amounts just under $10,000, the federal reporting threshold. License plate readers detected her vehicle making an unusual trip to Charlotte, North Carolina, where she inquired about apartment rentals under a different name. Most revealing was a conversation captured on Eddie Brown's vehicle's Bluetooth system on January 6th, just 1 day after the body's discovery. In the recording, Taylor can be heard saying, "We need to get our story straight. If they ask you anything, you don't know anything. I was with you all night watching movies. That's it." On January 7th, 2022, detectives executed simultaneous search warrants on Taylor's residence and Eddie Brown's apartment. The evidence recovered was overwhelming. At Taylor's home, investigators discovered a section of replacement carpet that didn't quite match the surrounding flooring, luminol-reactive blood traces in the grout between kitchen tiles, a box of .38 caliber ammunition hidden in an air vent, a deleted but recoverable Google search history, including queries like "How long for a body to decompose in water?" and "Can bullets be traced without the gun?" A journal containing entries that suggested premeditation, including one dated December 15th that read, "He thinks I don't know about her. 2 can play that game, but only 1 will win." At Eddie's apartment, detectives found a plastic bag containing shell casings that ballistics would later match to the bullets recovered from Terrell's body, along with Terrell's wallet and cell phone, items Taylor had claimed Terrell had taken when he left. The evidence was insurmountable. Later that same day, detectives arrived at the community center where Taylor was organizing a benefit event supposedly to raise reward money for information about Terrell's disappearance. In a moment of poetic justice, Taylor was in the middle of a speech about never giving up the search when officers entered and placed her in handcuffs. Witnesses described the arrest as surreal. The mask of concerned girlfriend slipped away instantly, replaced by what one officer described as cold calculation. There were no tears, no protests of innocence, just a flat effect and a single question: is Eddie talking? As news of Taylor's arrest spread, the community that had rallied around her search efforts reeled from the betrayal. Social media groups once dedicated to finding Terrell transformed overnight into forums processing the collective trauma of having been manipulated. Volunteers who had searched in freezing temperatures expressed feelings of violation. Parents who had allowed their children to participate in search events alongside Taylor expressed horror at having exposed them to a killer. Terrell's sister Rose perhaps best captured the community's sentiment in a statement to local media. "She didn't just murder my brother. She murdered our trust, our compassion, and our willingness to help strangers in need. That's a wound that doesn't heal when the handcuffs go on." The legal process that followed Taylor's arrest revealed a woman determined to avoid accountability despite overwhelming evidence. At her arraignment on January 10, 2022, she entered a not guilty plea to all charges, including first-degree murder, possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, and obstruction of justice. Her court-appointed attorney attempted to construct a narrative of self-defense gone wrong, followed by panic, a stark contrast to the methodical cover-up evidence suggested. "My client feared for her safety during a domestic dispute," the attorney claimed in preliminary hearings. What followed was the irrational response of a frightened woman, not the calculated actions of a murderer. This defense strategy collapsed under the weight of forensic evidence, particularly the shot to Terrell's back and the premeditated elements like the pre-purchased carpet and rental car. The prosecution, led by veteran District Attorney Eleanor Simmons, methodically assembled what she called a case built on digital, physical, and testimonial pillars that leave no room for reasonable doubt. As the case progressed through 2022 and 2023, Taylor maintained her innocence while her behavior in detention revealed a different mindset. Jail phone recordings captured her attempting to manipulate witnesses, including pressuring Shanice to recant her statement and instructing family members to delete specific text messages and photos from her accounts. Perhaps most disturbing were recorded conversations with Eddie Brown, who had been charged as an accessory after the fact. In these calls, Taylor repeatedly reminded Eddie that they can't prove anything if we both stay quiet, and suggested that he should take the main charge since he had a cleaner record and would receive a lighter sentence. Eddie, however, had begun cooperating with investigators almost immediately after his arrest, providing detailed statements about his role in the aftermath of the murder, and confirming that Taylor had called him specifically to help dispose of Terrell's body. His cooperation would eventually secure him a reduced charge in exchange for testimony against Taylor. By early 2024, facing the prospect of a trial where the evidence, including Eddie's testimony, would be presented in excruciating detail, Taylor's strategy shifted. On March 24, 2024, she accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to voluntary manslaughter rather than facing trial for first-degree murder. The agreement resulted in a 20-year sentence with no possibility of parole until 2038. The sentencing hearing provided the first opportunity for Terrell's family to address Taylor directly. In a courtroom packed with community members who had once searched for Terrell, his sister Rose delivered a victim impact statement that left many in tears. "My brother's children ask me questions I can never answer properly," she told the court, her voice breaking. "How do you explain to a child that the woman who helped them make 'Find Daddy' posters knew exactly where their father was all along? How do you explain that the same hands that held theirs during the search had pulled the trigger that took their father away forever?" Rose described the impossible task of preserving Terrell's memory for his children while helping them process the betrayal and violence that ended his life. "These children have lost not just their father, but their innocence and their trust in the world," she said. "That is a sentence they will serve for life, with no possibility of parole." When given the opportunity to speak, Taylor offered what many perceived as a hollow apology, focused more on her own circumstances than genuine remorse. "I never meant for things to go this far," she said, avoiding direct eye contact with Terrell's family. "I made mistakes in a moment of high emotion that I can't take back." The judge was unmoved by this partial acceptance of responsibility. "This was not a crime of sudden passion," he stated during sentencing. "The evidence shows planning before and calculated actions after. Most disturbing was your exploitation of the victim's children and family in your deception, a cruelty that extends beyond the taking of a life." As Taylor was led from the courtroom to begin her sentence, the community began the long process of healing from both the murder and the manipulation that followed. A trust fund established for Terrell's children had raised over $50,000, ensuring their financial needs would be supported despite their father's absence. The case prompted the Columbia Police Department to implement new protocols for missing persons investigations, including earlier and more thorough examination of digital evidence and rental vehicle records. Detective Rivera, whose instincts had proven correct, developed a training program for other officers on recognizing deception in domestic disappearance cases. For those who had been unwittingly drawn into Taylor's performance, the search volunteers, the social media supporters, the community members who had embraced her cause, the case left lasting psychological impacts. Support groups formed to process what one participant called the trauma of having your compassion weaponized against you. As Taylor began serving her sentence at a South Carolina correctional facility, the community was left to reflect on how thoroughly they had been deceived by someone they thought they knew. A woman who could organize search parties with one hand while concealing evidence with the other, who could cry on camera about finding Terrell while knowing exactly where he was and how he got there. The case of Taylor Wardlaw serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the person leading the search is the same person who made someone disappear, and that the capacity for deception can sometimes be as dangerous as the capacity for violence itself.